Yo, what's up, family, and welcome into your review of not one but two films. And I figured now would be the best time to wait. So this obviously is not going to be your typical movie review. What you mean not typical, FM? Does that mean you're not going to be reviewing them? No, for the first time I am going to do a movie v movie review, and obviously those movies, if you haven't already guessed, is going to be Thor Ragnarok and Justice League. Thor Ragnarok v Justice League, if you will. So like Batman v Superman, except it's a movie v a movie. Yeah, how original, FM. The way this review works is we're gonna highlight different categories and talk about both movies individually, what they excelled at and what they failed at. Afterwards, we get a little bit spoiler talk and some insight and our final score of who won, if that makes sense. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this review started. We all know he's gonna be biased towards Marvel. Just look at his name. Now, both of these movies are essentially team films. On the Thor side, you have Thor himself, Loki, Hulk, Valkyrie, and I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but still, those are basically your team dynamic on the Marvel side. And on Justice League side, obviously you have the core Justice League members minus Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter and whatnot. So you got Batman, Flash, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Supes, and Cyborg. And I have to say that both of these movies actually excel fairly well with the character development. So does that mean both of these get a tie? Okay, we can move on to the next category. Now hold on, Marv, I'm not done quite yet. The common thing that both of these movies have is that they do feature already established characters, even though one movie has fairly more established characters than the other. Obviously, we're talking about Marvel being the most established. What I enjoyed about Thor was the dynamic between Thor and Loki, obviously, and they actually go a little bit more deep into their relationship, which I thought was really awesome. And you kind of really see them a little more humanized, especially Loki. But they're gods. How do you humanize gods? Well, in one way or another, they did it for Superman and Man of Steel, didn't they? Touche. As far as Thor's character development, I have to say that everybody was fleshed out fairly well. We got a little bit more insight on the villain. You had extra characters to get to know, like Valkyrie again, and not even so much just Bruce Banner, but we also get character development from the Hulk himself, which I think was a breath of fresh air with the MCU Hulk, because we never really seen Hulk as a character. He was more like a prop in the past movies, even though it was amazing when he was on screen, but he felt like a living, breathing character now. And I definitely have to give my hats off to Valkyrie, because her character motivation in this was pretty interesting, because she was more of a damaged character and essentially sort of a lost soul. And I really like how they kind of progressed her character from how we're introduced to her up until the point where she's now a team player. So I have to commend them on that. What did I tell you? He's already given Marvel the favor. Justice League had good character development too, although it was a bit unbalanced at times. Everybody has their own dynamic that they bring to the group. Some are more apprehensive than others. Others are more willing. Some are more forthright. Some are more secretive. And it's like they're all trying to find themselves as a team. And even though there was some things about it that I probably would have done differently, I really feel that they did work well together in the end. Surprisingly enough, I thought that Cyborg was the most developed character out of the entire Justice League. I mean, obviously we had Wonder Woman and Batman that we already gotten introduced to, including Superman, but out of the new people, which I was surprised that Cyborg had got most of the shine, really. It's not to say that no one else gets shine, but obviously Cyborg as a character, he was pretty integral to the plot. And I really wasn't expecting that, but considering that one of the things that was what is the word I'm looking for? I think the word you're looking for is plot device. I mean, yeah, but, well, the mother box thing. I mean, obviously you can say that that is what propels the story and what's motivating like all this craziness or whatever. But obviously, as far as characters, the highlight is the Justice League themselves. As far as everyone else, yeah, they kind of fall by the wayside. Which brings me to the villains of each movie. Now here we have Hela and Steppenwolf. And I have to say that between the two, Hela was a better villain. Ha! See what I tell you? Now first off, let me explain before I trigger any fanboyish bias. The problem I had with Steppenwolf is because what I mentioned before about Hulk and Thor feeling more like a prop, unfortunately, that's what Steppenwolf felt like in Justice League. There were some moments where he felt imposing, but essentially he was just this big CGI monster in Justice League, and it was hard to get behind him because there wasn't really much development for him. He was kind of just there just to cause chaos and, you know, kill a couple of people, cause destruction. That's what it was. He was just there to cause chaos. Hela had a similar thing going with her, only she felt way more imposing and a threat to the protagonist in Thor. Like, even though she is this darkly attractive woman who just seems normal or has magic, the thing is, what she accomplishes in this movie is it makes her a real problem in Thor, and to the point where you essentially were worried for everybody that was fighting against her. And if you've seen the movie, you understand why. They actually had a little bit more backstory with her that you were able to kind of take in and kind of assemble the pieces a bit, because there were some story choices, whatnot, that they changed specifically for this movie. Some people are against, some people are for, but, you know, again, these comic book movies, they always split fans down the middle. Oh yeah, just like you're doing with this movie v movie review. That is not the intention. It's a compare and contrast, and Marv, just shut up. Okay, we got some rudeness coming. Okay, yeah. I apologize. Okay, continue. Marvel fanboy. When it comes to character development, I'm gonna have to give this one to Thor Ragnarok. It's not to say that Justice League had bad character development, it's just it didn't flow evenly between building up each member of the Justice League and side characters and antagonists. So there was some good things there, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't consistent. So that's why Thor gets the point. Yeah, being an MCU movie has nothing to do with it. Marv, just shut up. Rudeness. Okay guys, so that concludes the character portion, so let's move on to the next section. Story elements in both of these movies I felt worked really well. What I will say, as far as Justice League goes, it got straight to the point. There wasn't much a build up to the plot as far as the story progression goes, but essentially it hit a mark and it went on to the next thing, explaining how things are going to progress from there. And it didn't take a long time to get there. It essentially got to the point at a timely manner as to progress the story, and it wasn't a point where you got lost in what was happening, which is a good thing considering. Now, to reference back what I was talking about with the characters, with it not being as balanced, even with that being the case, the movie does take some time to develop the backstory for each character. It's just that some characters get more attention than others. We already know Wonder Woman and Batman's backstory in this cinematic universe, so we don't necessarily need their stories, even though I would say Wonder Woman probably still has like a very big plot to fill, but maybe that's something they'll address later down the line, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The new characters' backstories, while brief, I feel is rather well explained, even though we could go more into it. But at the same time, it's not necessarily something that propels the plot of This movie is just more so, obviously, all these different people trying to come together for a common goal to stop this world-ending event, of course, and they essentially just go from there. So it's a very clean cut plot. Now with Thor Ragnarok's story, for the most part, it does really well. It does pace itself and bringing in different elements and really letting them be fleshed out. And it does essentially get to the point, much like Justice League does. It doesn't necessarily dawdle about certain things, but I feel that this one, it flows a little bit better than it does in Justice League. But I can't really say that one really excels highly than the other. So essentially, I think when it comes to both of these movies, I have to give them both a point for this because of the simple fact that both stories essentially get to the whole point of the matter and they flesh it out from there. So I honestly would have to give props to both movies in that regard. So I can't really put one over the other as far as story goes. But you still gave Thor that point though. What? Both of these films took on a similar tone as far as character, personality-wise, some humor used and whatnot. And it's essentially even, but there is a bit of a difference between the two. Oh, enlighten us, great one. Now, Justice League's humor, for the most part, I would say was good. It worked well in some respects, and sometimes it kind of felt overdone. Some people have said the same about Thor Ragnarok, but I think what the key difference is between both of the movies is that Thor Ragnarok, for all intents and purposes, is essentially going for an action comedy route. But don't all the MCU movies take an action comedy route? That's kind of a yes and a no, because the MCU essentially, even though they're all action movies, they do touch on different subgenres within the action. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to make them all action comedies, but they all have humor though. Lots of movies have humor in them. That doesn't make them a comedy automatically. To get back on topic, I think what Justice League attempted to do, I think, was a step in the right direction, but I don't think they had a clear focus on how to orchestrate it all. The reason why I think it works more for Thor Ragnarok, because it needed something to make the movie feel fresh with this character, because Thor essentially was a character that took himself seriously a lot. And I think the way the movies were done, the previous two movies, while obviously considered some of the weakest in the MCU, which I agree with. You actually agree that an MCU movie is actually weak. I'm impressed. Yes, passable, but they are a bit weak. And I really feel that this was a good turn for this character, and especially how they had him progress through this movie. I think it was a change that was definitely needed for his character. And there was a neat comparison I've heard online before where they essentially said that Thor is a character essentially took on traits from Marvel's Hercules. And I think that's a pretty fair assessment. But that doesn't make the characters accurate though. Are we still really stuck on the accuracy thing? Look, if you haven't been keeping up with the MCU since Iron Man back in 2008, then you really have no idea how different everything has been so far. So in regards to film tone with both movies, I'm gonna have to give this one to Thor because it felt more natural in that film as opposed to Justice League. It's not this, again, it's not to say that it didn't work in Justice League. I just think that some things probably could have been reined in a little bit more. Essentially, some things worked, some things didn't. Just like with all movies, they're not perfect. There's some things in Thor that, you know, not everybody's probably going to take kindly to. Is like some of the things that they did in it that you probably won't appreciate as much. But overall, I really felt that what they went for with this film and how they did it, obviously, I felt it was a ballsy move the way they went with it, and I felt it flowed better. So Thor gets that point. You all have my permission to boo this man. Whatever, Marv. So anyway, we're gonna move to the final section before I give my overall score for both movies and who definitively won this thing overall. That's not including points. But anyway, next section. Now, notable changes in Thor Ragnarok with Hela is she's not Loki's daughter, she's their sister. She's basically Odin's firstborn, who was bloodthirsty and bludgeoning and all this stuff, and she just desired destruction. Odin was like, yeah, I rode with you for a little bit, but now I can't do that, so you're gonna have to go away while I'll try to bring peace to the 9 realms. And Odin essentially gives his farewell speech with Thor and Loki, and he dies essentially. And Hela comes back and just wreaks havoc. Like, she just has no chill. This is why I said Hela felt more imposing than Steppenwolf did when he came, because when you see Hela, Hela looks like a real person. The abilities that she has and what she was capable of, she was a true threat. She literally went to Asgard and wiped everybody out with the exception of civilian Asgardians. It was sensational to watch. At least, I mean, that's all I can say. Steppenwolf, when he came on the scene, like, they showed him grab one of the mother boxes in Themyscira, because the way they plotted it out, that it was like this big war before, and they split like 3 of the mother boxes in different locations, to where one was in Atlantis, one was with the Amazons, another one was on Earth somewhere. But they just showed him get the one from Themyscira first, and I would safe to say he wiped out quite a few Amazons. But I have to say that chase scene that they had when the Amazons were trying to keep the mother box away from Steppenwolf, I really thought that was a really good scene, although very CGI heavy. All the movies are CGI heavy. Why are you singling out Justice League? Fanboy! Marv, I use the term CGI heavy is because some of the backgrounds in CG, it didn't look very seamless, which kind of was the biggest criticism of Justice League, and rightfully so. Some of the CGI looked good, some of them looked questionable. The main time the CGI was kind of questionable was when Steppenwolf was involved, and sometimes Cyborg. Now, overall, Cyborg wound up looking better than I originally thought he would, but I'm still not a fan of his design. I really feel that they should have gone with a more practical approach and just added CG over it, because his proportions of his body, sometimes it looked a bit off. Then, of course, there's the whole thing with Henry Cavill's mustache that they had the CGI over, which is noticeable in the beginning because they have like this little smartphone footage at the beginning of this kid asking Superman questions, and his mouth looks a little weird when he talks. It's because they CGI'd over his facial hair that he was probably contractually obligated to keep with Paramount doing Mission Impossible 6. So it just kind of is what it is. Like, I mean, either you can get past it or you can't. I don't know. Like, it didn't bother me as much, even though it was noticeable. But yeah, I have to say that the best scene in Justice League had to do with Superman's resurrection. Now, the idea was they came up with the plan to resurrect Superman using the power of the mother box, since it's just, you know, a cube of power, so to speak. Didn't a cube of power show up in Marvel? I mean, it did, but different cube. Either way, they managed to resurrect Superman. He's just awake. He doesn't really know what's going on. He's kind of like just all instinct right now. He doesn't even know how he's alive again, even though he's Superman. He's not technically dead. We know who Superman is. But anyway, the thing is, it results in a fight between him and the Justice League, and I have to say that I was worried about everyone in the Justice League because Superman was no joke at all. It's funny because he felt more imposing than Steppenwolf did. And there was a reason, because honestly, when Superman showed up with Steppenwolf, he basically bodied Steppenwolf on his own. So it's just kind of like one of those things that, like, the payoff isn't as great, but it's still a nice spectacle to watch. So I still give Justice League credit in that regard. Overall, with Thor, I have to say that it was an enjoyable experience. Like, with Hela, the antagonist, like, just how things played out, like how they got a bit bold with what they decided to do with it. I mean, they destroyed Mjolnir. Hela was just wrecking everything and killed the entire Asgardian Royal Guard. I mean, the Warriors 3, they're pretty much all dead, with the exception of Sif. She wasn't even in the movie at all, and I guess that has something to do with Jamie Alexander being on her show Flash. Was it Flashpoint? It's something like that. But either way, she wasn't in the movie, so I guess that's kind of a saving grace, because apparently her character's still alive somewhere. So with all that being said, our movie review, the tally is in, and the winner in this battle is the fans. What the hell? Yes, I know it's a cop-out, but I really feel that both of these movies did the fans a good service. Personally, I feel that Thor Ragnarok was a more balanced movie of the two. Probably has to do with the fact that Warner Brothers had that 2-hour mandate for Justice League, which probably cut some things short, because there were some, again, that balance didn't flow as good because of that mandate. I'm blaming the mandate, honestly. Aside from reshoots, whatever the case may be, whatever happened, I feel that we still at least got a decent movie out of it. So yes, I feel that the winners here are the fans. So with that being said, Thor Ragnarok gets my marvelous score of 8.5 out of 10, and Justice League gets 7.5 out of 10. That's to be fair, that's only a point between them. Both of them, I think, for the most part, are solid movies. I was actually back and forth with Justice League whether or not it was a 7 or 7.5, but, you know, split hairs, just say 7.5. I think it's a fair rating, and there you go. But in the end, the review still favors Marvel. Yeah, we'll see if it still favors Marvel when X-Men Dark Phoenix and such comes out next year, and yeah, I dread to think about it all, to be honest. So guys, that's my review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry it was a little overdue, but I felt to wait until both movies were out so I can get my general consensus of them. So, some extra news, guys. I just want to let you know that as of now, I've actually hooked up with the Culture Junkies on their channel for live broadcast every Tuesday night. I'll have a link in the description of their pages and where you can check us out and whatnot. And hey, you guys feel free to tune into our broadcast every Tuesday night. It's pretty much 8 Central, 9 Eastern, however you want to calculate that. That's usually when it starts. So, you know, unless anything else crazy happens, hey, you'll catch me over there. You guys join in on the conversation, and I love to hear what you guys think. So, you know, come and check us out. And as far as this video goes, go ahead and post your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of the movies. And overall, you know, let's have an exchange and talk about stuff. So as usual, go ahead and like, subscribe, all those wonderful things. And I will check with you guys in the next video. Until then, keep following my advice to go nerd, but nerd responsibly. This is your boy Fallen Marvel, and I'm your friendly neighborhood Marv. And family, we are out.